going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Yagan Mills, but here's just my final review for Marathon. If you want to check out my live streams for the Server Slam for Marathon, feel free to click the link in the video at the end. But I'll keep it short and sweet for you guys, because time is very important. As Marathon is coming up to be released soon, I believe for the currency of $40. Mind you, I didn't buy the game, I didn't pre-order it. However, for what it's worth as an extraction shooter, I did enjoy it. I don't believe it's worth the $40 or whatever asking price that they're going to go for. If it's over $30, it's an absolute no-buy. Not because I think it's a horrible, atrocious game, or do I think it's an amazing game or anything like that. What I do believe Marathon is, it's definitely not a free-to-play game, but I do believe it is worth the experience, especially if you want to dive into something unique and different. Only because it's on the merits that, well, yes, at its core it's an extraction shooter, but it's very confusing too. It's very different from all the other extraction shooters compared to Tarkov, DMZ, Hazard Zone, Arc Raiders, and everything in between. Mind you, if I remember correctly, the first extraction shooter that we had, or to some extent, was The Division, and that was in the Dark Zone. So we have since then have had many battle royales, extraction, survival type genres of games throughout the years. Excuse me. I don't believe that Marathon really does anything different other than present itself as something different. At its core, it's still an extraction first-person shooter, similar to Tarkov, Hazard Zone, DMZ, and so forth. You get my meaning. This sets itself apart from games like The Division, I believe it's Extraction, Dark Zone, and Arc Raiders, because those are over-the-shoulder third-person extraction shooters. This Marathon ties itself closely to Hazard Zone, a first-person shooter tied off from Battlefield 2042, and also DMZ, and Tarkov, along with games like Delta Force and Arena Breakout. Because of this, within those genres and those first-person shooter games that I had listed, it sets itself apart within that genre, especially lists of games. Now, I'm not going to compare Tarkov to Marathon or Marathon to Tarkov, because one is completely different than the other, aesthetically, specifically. At its core, it's an extraction shooter. What I find interesting is its presentation. Now, one thing that caught my attention right off the bat, if you've seen the movie AI, a very older movie, the movie's called AI, a great movie. And if you've seen the movie more recently, Leave the World Behind, and what I'm getting at is that aesthetic and presentation of, oh my goodness, you don't know the full story of the lore of what's going on in Marathon. And the music, it's not eerie, it's futuristic, systematic in a way where it kind of pulls you in, if that makes sense. And I love music like this. I love EDM, I love techno music, I love the retro presentation it has, but I do believe its theme of, hate to say it, yellow, blue, and reds is very in your face. Now, I love the fact that it's in a different world, and they try to explain the lore and what occurred and things like that, the eradication of the human race. I don't even know, to be honest. And what I do find interesting is I want to know more about the lore of Marathon. However, it doesn't have anything to do, if you've had the luxury of playing the original Marathon, it doesn't even correlate with that. And I understand some people were saying that Marathon is essentially was before Halo. And what I believe what would have helped Marathon, and I would have actually been all for it, and I told my friend this, Paquito18, give him a like and a follow as well, is that if Marathon had a campaign or story mode where I could dive in to the lore, I would have been so on board for that. Like, forget paying $40 or $30. I want to pay $80 for a good game. And especially if it had an extraction shooter, you know what I mean? Tied to it. So I want to know, why are we being put in this position, especially in the game of Marathon? Why are we extracting these materials? For what reason? For what in-game? For what purpose? That's what I want to know. It's not a matter that I ultimately think it's a bad game. I mean, at first glance, when I first hopped in on my, playing the Server Slam, I already knew what I was doing at its core. I mean, it's a first-person shooter. What about it is difficult? You know how to run, you press R3 or whatever the controls were for a computer and Xbox, but at its core, once you've played a first-person shooter like Call of Duty, Battlefield, or what have you, or Tarkov or anything like, you've played them all. So at face value, for me, it was very easy to pick up, and it only took me another hour to play. And mind you, I only played 2 hours of Marathon, and I got more kills than I did before. At first glance, that beginner level that I was playing on, that map, um, it felt really in your face. Like when you were really hurt and stuff like that, you had like blue blood obviously running down all over your screen. It was very obscuring, but to absolve you from that, you have to heal yourself or bandage yourself. It was very difficult to find out, and you had to do a lot of reading and reading the descriptions of what you're using. And it totally makes sense. If you're doing the wrong things, you're not going to get the outcomes you want. I get that. This doesn't mean that Marathon was a good game, but what it means is that I think the asking price for $40, knowing that there's something that is a little bit better, like Arc Raiders, for example, or Delta Force, or Arena Breakout, is free. I don't think the asking price is worth it, especially when you have something equivalent, which is DMZ, and that's free. So I don't understand where the notion is where it would be justifiable to say, hey, let's go ahead and pay $40 for Marathon that only offers one mode. Now, if Marathon offers a campaign, a multiplayer, and an extraction that all ties together with maybe cross progression, I would be so on board for that. But I'll tell you what, just sitting in the menus right now, even though I know obviously I can't access the game, I love the music, and that's what got me into it. The aesthetic, I eventually got used to the whole color palette, but it does need some work. I cannot justify, though, paying $40, $30 for this. At best, maybe $10. $10 for this game for what it offers. But again, I digress. But if I had a choice, right, if it is going for $40, if I had a choice between buying Marathon and buying Arc Raiders and buying Tarkov, or let's say just a brand new different let's just say Modern Warfare 4. I would opt in for Modern Warfare 4 and Arc Raiders. Why? Because it offers probably more. At least there's understandable lore with Arc Raiders. It's in its presentation, and that's what I appreciate. What I do hope for the future of Marathon is maybe they go back to the drawing board. Maybe use Marathon as a stepping stone to bring forth maybe something more that Marathon can offer. And I know this is Bungie, but then again, if Marathon is the prerequisite to Halo, then I think the developers at Marathon Bungie needs to go back to the drawing board, use Marathon as a learning opportunity, a teachable moment, and present themselves a different form. And I would suggest this. Based off the original Marathon, use the events of the original Marathon to lead into the current Marathon, the extraction shooter and stuff like that. And as you explain the story, maybe go back if Marathon does well or it goes free to play, and then you start charging for a campaign, a story for Marathon. Refine maybe the movements, refine the looting system and things like that. Set yourself apart from every other looter shooter game, because I think Marathon is something unique. I don't think they hit the mark just yet, but I cannot justify paying $40, $30 for what I'm saying and what I enjoy and what I am played. I think the formula is there. I think it was just executed poorly. And that's going to show in its sales numbers. That's obviously very much showing in its reviews of content creators and stuff like that. I know people are saying, "Oh, you don't trust the shills, don't trust Burnt Peanut and all that good stuff." Yeah, I mean, I get that. I am simply a casual. I enjoy what I enjoy, and I can tell you what I like. I love the theme. The color palette, it's a bit much. It's a bit much. But if you make it easier for people to understand what they're doing, maybe refine the tutorial. It's Happa, thank you for that idea. Listen to your consumer base. Yeah, I think generally you have something good here, but it's just executed poorly for possibly obvious reasons. They ain't trying to attack any of the lead developers, anything like that, but you got to admit, activism has no place in gaming development, plain and simple. So what I really hope at this point in time that, Bungie learns from their mistakes, really takes and hones in, maybe presenting a compelling story, a campaign mode, maybe even multiplayer, maybe a 4v4 multiplayer, nothing extravagant, just to get people in, right? And then use the extraction mode, right? The extraction, how we had the service land, as a catalyst to expand on that story. And I think you might have something worth asking price of $40. But if there's something so much more, maybe refine the movements because it feels a little janky and a little heavy, right? Like it's kind of like a mobile game. I think you might have something here if we refine it. And maybe something that rivals Call of Duty in a different light. But that's just my thoughts. I did enjoy the Server Slam. I'm glad I had an opportunity to play it because I didn't get a chance to do the Server Slam for Arc Raiders, but I appreciate Bungie and what you guys do, and I really hope that you learn from it because the only game I know that you guys have been successful in the past is Halo, and I'm not really much of a Halo fan, but if there's something to be said about potential success in a great, compelling game, then it could be Marathon tying in with Halo, and I think that'd be a great prospect. But that's just my thoughts. Not trying to kiss ass or anything like that, but I do believe that there is potential, and I think initially what got me into liking the game was the choice of music and its presentation. Like the gameplay really needs some work. The aesthetic could tone it down just a bit. Now I will say Dire Marsh, that second map that I played on, that took away all my expectations because I was only initially judging based off the first map I was on. But once I got to that second map, though, I was like, okay, I see what they're doing. I had a better understanding because I didn't just pass judgment right out of the gate. I decided to wait. I decided to play. That's why I did no commentary on those live streams because I really wanted to immerse myself in it. I wanted to understand what was going on a little bit better and take my time. And because of that, I do appreciate some aspects of the game. I don't appreciate the whole thing. I don't appreciate that you guys are asking $40 on a single mode game. Same thing with Arc Raiders. Really, one mode and that's all you got? Like two, like solo? I'm like, no, I cannot justify a game that only offers one mode unless it's a story-driven game like Days Gone. It was a really great game. Had some bugs in there, it was fixed, but I can justify that paying $60, $80 for a campaign that's well established, that is well executed, and that's what I look for in a great product. And I think Marathon and Arc Raiders can provide a great product if they provide everything they're capable of doing. If Arc Raiders had PvP, PvE, solo, duos, trios, and a campaign and multiplayer, I think you have something great. I think if Marathon followed suit and decided to do something different and unique and not toe the line of what everyone else is doing, you may have something great. But once again, I believe, and I told my friend this, Paquito, dude, I think at this point there's starting to be an oversaturation of extraction shooters. Forget whatever platform it's on. There's an oversaturation of good and bad extraction shooters. But the problem that extraction shooters we're running into is that once we're done, what do we do now? That's the problem that Arc Raiders is having. And then you have the cheater problem. So we don't even know if Bungie is going to have enough cheaters really to mess up the game in Marathon. We really don't know. But I digress. This is just my thoughts off the cuff. And, other than that, remember always, feel free to like and subscribe and comment below if you enjoy. I'll leave it at that. And remember always, peace be with you. I'll see you on the next one. Ciao, guys.